And welcome to Stock Market Neophytes. We are learning how to do stock market trading, and I ran across this guy on the internet, and he's on the TikTok, and he's out there. He's no neophyte. I was looking at some of his stuff, trying to learn some stuff. I'm lucky. I would like to remind our viewers I was 13 on Friday the 13th of 1974. I'm not only old, but I'm lucky to be living this long with the life I've led. So Gary is he'll be on shortly here, but. I caught this guy on TikTok, and he looks, he looks legit and all that. I say, hey, why don't you come on my show? And he said, okay, we'll come on here. So this is Bez. He's with Cube Wealth. So give us a little bit of your background, Bez.
John, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to having this podcast and sharing some thoughts on the market. So my background's interesting. So I got my degree in finance from the Rutgers Business School now 11 years ago. I started out my career with a small little internship at Merrill Lynch, then leveraged that full-time offer to work full-time at JP Morgan, where I worked there for several years, got my series certifications. And then one late night in the office, I decided to start Cube as an Instagram page back in December of 2015. It was just meant to be fun, just post some little articles and thoughts on the market. One thing led to another, started gaining some traction. A few years later, I decided to part ways, said, let me give this a shot full time. And the rest is history now. 8 years, I have now been working full time on Cube. I think I might bring your audience maybe a little bit of a different perspective on the market, where I am fully focused on long-term investing. I know you and Gary are more of the maybe day trading, shorter term mindset, and that's completely fine. However way you guys want to make money in the market, by all means. I think I preach a little bit more to the layman, the average guy who maybe has a 401k he's contributing to, more set it and forget it mentality. That's not to say we're not taking some individual stock risk, but it's part of a diversified portfolio. So just to give you a little bit more color on what I've been doing the last 8 years full time, I have a little over 200 subscribers, clients, however you'd like to refer to them, from all areas of the world, where they subscribe to my platform for unique equity research reports that I write and financial models that I create. So I'm a really big fundamental investor guy. I believe in creating these very intricate, detailed, discounted cash flow models. And every month they're getting those models. They're getting the 30 to 40 page equity research reports. They're getting my annual and quarterly outlooks on the equity markets and the general economy. So yeah, I'm just pretty much a full end-to-end content creator at this point. And I'm really happy we crossed paths on TikTok, man.
Yeah. I have 1,000 questions because I'm a mason. A contractor, mason contractor, and all that. I've been doing that for years. Gary was a builder, and that's how I knew him. I bricked the houses for him, and we played golf together and all that. And we've known each other for a bunch of years. And he was like a closet day trader back in the day. Yeah, back when you had to call a broker and stuff, and
Oh
do all
man.
that stuff. Yeah, so he's been doing it for a while. I'm more in your camp of long term investment. I like dividend stock, those type of things, trying to grow that wealth. But Gary likes that. He's sort of retired, so he has time to babysit it. But I don't know if I have all that patience. So you talked about doing the research on that. So what do you look for in a company? What do you? I mean, you see these guys Kramer, and we always make fun of Kramer, and
Yeah.
but what do you look for when you're looking for a long term investment?
So this is always interesting because my background is so financially influenced. So it's all numbers and Excel files, but we cannot forget the most important part here is people run these companies. So before I'm even getting into the modeling of how gross margins might scale, or what kind of economies of scale we might see, or operating leverage that's built into the business model, before I'm even getting into anything about that, I want to make sure I can trust who is running the company. I think people forget. They almost look at the market as too much as numbers and stats and charts. If you're truly investing long term, you need to trust who's running the company, what kind of background he or she has, what kind of people have they surrounded themselves with? Do have they have a past track record of success? And then is their product or service, competitive in the market, right? I think this is what we kind of just look past a lot. So I start with that. If I do happen to like the person that's running the company, I will tell you I favor founder-led, founder-run companies. mainly because me being a founder of a company for the last almost decade now, this is my baby. This is everything to me, and I'm gonna do everything I can to see it succeed. So it's it ties their incentives. It's not just a big corporate CEO that's getting paid 15, 20 million a year to cash his check, and he doesn't really care where the company.
Looking for that golden parachute. Well, make sure you put if you put your links in my private chat or put them on. You can go back on this and put your links in there so people can get a hold of you if they
Yeah,
want to.
sure.
Because if you our show's for entertainment purposes, and I know that you had a banner on yours. I got to put mine up. Gary's not here to remind me that, but that's the wrong. That's for the.
Conspiracy theories. We can have a separate podcast for that one if you want, John.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I got Gary here. Let's bring Gary on here.
Gary, how are you?
What is going on? Sorry, gentlemen. Just running just a little late.
That's all right. That's all right. Good to
see
you.
Cube.
How are you, Gary? How's everything?
Good.
Thank you so much for having me today. I really appreciate it.
What I missed? What is going on?
We were just talking about day trading, and I was asking some questions about how you do that. So we've got the introduction part out of the way. So this is Ben's. He's with Cube Wealth. He does this full time. He's been 8 years on his own. He's as a trader. Now, do you live in New York? Where do you live?
I live in New Jersey.
Oh, Jersey.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
I think I lost you.
How about them Knicks? Come on.
Oh, man.
Come on. Oh yeah.
Listen, I'll applaud the season. It was a good season. But the Pacers, they have our number. They've had our number as long as I've been alive. So
yeah,
that one stings a little bit. But talk about a win last night. But I don't want to get too much on a tangent.
I was at one of the game 6s in Market Square back when Reggie was playing when they won. It was friggin' pandemonium. But man, there's something about this team.
Reggie
Everybody's
Miller,
underestimated them.
Yeah, that game last night was insane.
I turned it off. I just quit looking at the score. It was 66-77, and I bet the money line. I bet that they were going to win. I'm like, oh well, there's $5 down the drain, which I turned into $22. I might say I'm very proud of that. It's like
nice.
Like playing the stock market. But Gary, so Ben's has been into the business here. This is your full-time gig, right? This is what you do.
Full time. This is all I do. Now I'm gonna be honest with your audience here. First 2 years, I would say I probably left the corporate too soon. I left JP Morgan a little too soon. I got a little ahead of my skis, and like any startup, the beginning's always rough. I was Ubering, and actually I have a couple of clients today that I actually spoke to, picking them up on a ride, that are still with me for almost 8 years now, that I first picked them up Ubering.
Yeah,
that's what you got to do, man. I didn't have enough subscribers yet, and there was a lot of questioning whether I made the right decision or not. You leave a comfy corporate job paying you 6 figures, and you look like your path is clear, and you shake things up, and so it's been a long time coming, and knock on wood, hopefully it continues.
Tell us again, recap your what you provide for your subscribers. And
yeah, absolutely. So I just want to preface I cannot stress it enough. My whole entire business has been on the antithesis of day trading. I do not day trade, not a lick. My average holding is 5 years plus. I do not day trade a single thing. I do not swing trade anything. My whole entire premise, and I think that's why I've amassed a pretty solid TikTok audience so soon, is I think I provide a little bit of a different perspective on the market where everyone is focused on day trading. I am more of the buy, set, forget, let your money work for you. Go ahead and excel in some kind of professional career and just use the market as a means to growing your wealth, as opposed to just, trying to scalp something. Because today it's never been harder, guys. I have corporate experience. It's never been harder. You're not even competing on the day trading side with people anymore. It's algorithms and bots.
Right.
It's not easy. It's not easy. And to do it full time, I hate to knock people's dreams off, but maybe Gary's in a little bit different position here. You mentioned he's pretty much retired and he's got the time on his hands.
Well,
I'm 30. Yeah, I'm 31 now.
I've had 20 years of sitting in this chair in some capacity or another.
Yeah,
you have to have some seat time to do this. You
do. And my average subscriber, client, whatever you want to call them, is around 26 years old. They're fresh out of college a few years, finally paying off their student debt, maxing out their 401k, and then saying, hey, listen, I finally have some additional room in my budget to invest in my personal brokerage account. Let's have some fun with it. But I just try to have them avoid blowing up their account. So to put it simply, I do help people kind of avoid the get rich quick mentality and just focus on buying and investing in quality companies with the mindset of thinking in decades. So by doing that, I provide economic outlooks, equity research reports, financial models, things like that. I'm purely a fundamental investor. Don't get me wrong, I'll look at a chart here and there, but I keep it simple with moving averages and maybe some Fibonacci sequences. But you're not going to see me with Bollinger Bands.
How do you come across these recommendations that you make?
Yeah, so that was what we were just talking about.
Oh,
so
okay.
there's two, and there's a perfect leeway into it. There's two ways of going about the market, I would say. There's a top-down approach and there's a bottom-up approach.
It's not Jim Cramer, is it?
No, absolutely not.
That's good.
Unless you're looking for a stock you want to short, maybe.
Yeah, I short every time he says buy.
No, I hate to dig at him, man. But when I look at the market, you can look at it top down, which is, all right, I want exposure to technology, or I want exposure to robotics. And then you start drilling into names that cover that space because you want exposure to that space. Other people, which I'm not really in the camp of, are bottom-up investors, where now they're looking for a specific company that's generating XYZ free cash flow margins or has XYZ dividend yield. And then they'll start to say, okay, well, all these companies in this screener meet these credentials, and now I'm going to choose if I like the industry that they reside in. Okay, so I'm more of the top-down approach. So if I'm looking more thematically at, do I like robotics? Do I like software? Am I trying to get some exposure to AI? And then I will drill down into each individual company. And then as me and John were just discussing a little bit, before I even get into the financials, I need to know who's running this company, what's his track record or her track record of success, and then finally get into the numbers. Because you guys, I believe John was just introducing me a little bit about your backgrounds. You guys have both run your own companies. Mm-hmm. You know, a company's only as good as the people that work for it.
Right.
And you got to make sure it's surrounded by successful people with a good head on their shoulders before you even get into the numbers of how much revenue they're doing.
The company comes from the top man.
That's it. That's it. And that's what you're putting your money with. And I was telling John, I favor companies that are founder-led and founder-run, as opposed to just bringing on a big corporate big shot to take over the reins.
That leads me to the question, because Gary talked about Donald Trump Jr. got put on the board of this PS. I call it Pasquale's, but it's PSQH. Is that right?
Yeah.
And he got put on the board, and it went up, and it's come down, and so we were sort of basing that on, oh well, maybe he's going to get some governmental contracts or whatever, but it sort of left us. It's just sort of sputtering around. It's not really doing what we thought.
Yeah, a lot of what has been attached with that has been a lot of pump and dump type movement. We even saw with Newsmax. I'm sure you guys saw that pop and drop on Newsmax stock.
Don't give us that much credit that we pay that much.
Okay, never mind. Because there's a long track record of these guys. I mean, we don't have to get too much into politics, but there is some pump and dump action with some of these names. We saw it with even, what was that name? Rumble. Remember Rumble?
Yeah.
Because they might be the alternative platform for free speech. So people get a little ahead of their skis. They overvalue the company, and it just becomes a day trading tool. But
GameStop and DJT, when DJT first came out.
Yeah, those
went
were
all the way up. I was on
insane.
Vacation, and I've seen it go up 10 or 20 points the first day, and then the second day, I called my son. I said, something's going on. This is brand new, and it's Donald Trump. You probably ought to buy it. I think he bought 100 shares, and it went up another so many points. He made like 10 grand, but he only bought 100 shares.
Hey, listen, man, power to him, man.
Yeah, he got lucky because it came down.
Do the same thing when we're talking about crypto as well. It's the same thing. Right. I don't get involved with that kind of stuff, but it is fun to watch on the sidelines.
That was my question with crypto. What is your? I mean, I am like crypto is like kryptonite to me. Okay. I know Gary's probably not as much against it.
I don't trade crypto.
I don't trade it, but I don't
trade it.
I don't trade it either. For me, crypto is a diversification tool for my portfolio. Usually, it makes up 1 to 3% of my portfolio, just as a means of giving it some different correlation to my other investments. My experience with crypto is pretty simple. I owned Ethereum at 300. I sold at 4,000. I'm now back in at 2,300. And the reasoning for the buy and sell, I'll give you two reasons for it. One is because if you look at the correlation coefficient between the global money supply growth and crypto, it's nearly 1-to-1. When central banks are engaging in quantitative easing, you are finding that crypto tends to follow suit. You can say the same about gold and the same with equity markets. But then the second reason is a little bit more anecdotal, where I went to my barber back in 2021, and I have been getting this guy's been cutting my hair for over a decade. He's a foreigner from where I'm from, back in Albania, and English is not his first language. Not much of an education. I love the guy, but he's a barber for life, and there's nothing wrong with that. Makes a great living. But he starts for the first time ever sitting in this chair talking about crypto to me. I told him, Tony, I see what you're going for, man. I wish you luck. It's kind of run a lot now. I don't know how much more juice is left to squeeze, but just be careful. I went home and I sold Ether at 4,000. That was the top. So I think back when you guys, the slogan was, if your mailman's giving you stock advice, sell. In this case, it was my barber, and that was my tell. And he has yet to bring up the equity markets and crypto again. So I'm still holding long term. We're still safe.
Yeah, so we talk about that. We call this. We have an index. We call it the Gary 5 or the Johnny 5. So whoever wins that week, but it'll come down to who could predict Bitcoin right. And by the way, Gary, we're going to go 2 weeks till we do, because what we'll do is we'll pull up these stocks and talk about them, and then we'll make a prediction and then see who can rewrite. We actually got a little video. You can ride the goat if you don't do very well. In fact, here, let me play this. So if you don't do well on our show, then this is what you get. The stock you picked was hideous. It was awful. Now you must ride the goat.
Great.
Taking a beating on this before.
Just to explain a little bit about, and you'll understand what I do. I mean, it's pretty simple as far as anybody's going to day trade's got to pick some stocks that you like in that move and have liquidity, right? I mean, you got to be able to get in, get out. I don't trade futures. I used to, and I just couldn't get it. But I watch the futures, and then I've got 5-6 stocks, and then I got along with the TOS program, you got a chat in here, and these guys will throw in stocks that are moving, and they'll just throw them in there. They'll just throw in a symbol, and you pull it up and you look at it, and it's either you decide whether you're going to trade it or not.
Of course.
And how high it is or how low it is, whether it's going up or down. So, and that's all I do. I don't know what the companies do. I don't even care what they do, right?
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not here to tell you guys that day trading is not a way. People make money in day trading. Are the odds very slim? Yes.
Yes.
If you think about the average person, they are not designed to day trade. You are your biggest enemy. You're your biggest opponent. You got to make sure it doesn't get in your head. You have to make sure you don't trade out of anger because you messed up in a couple of trades and you want to overcompensate and get it back.
Or greed.
Yeah, greed as well. So, for most people, I would say like 95% of people, it's just not the way to go. Me personally, I want to keep the hair I have in my head, and I avoid day trading. It's just not something I'll quickly lose it. I've tried it early in my days, back when I was in college, just trying it out. I quickly lost my shirt. I started with 2,000. Dad said, "Listen, Bez, we'll match your 2,000. Let's see what you can do it for." That money was gone by the end of the year. Just trying to day trade it. So
that's interesting.
If it took you a year to get rid of it, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
I consider it a cheap lesson. $4,000 is a cheap lesson, man.
Well,
I've lost that in a day.
You saw in our intro where I had the $1,000 challenge. So me and Gary were supposed to put $1,000 in an account and see who would be well, Gary never did it, but I did it. So my first one was Spirit Airlines. I lost like friggin' three. I've got $1,000 turned into about 360 right now. Now, it's like, and then I realized that, day trading or, if you're younger, I think it makes sense. How old are you? Are you 20? How many?
I appreciate that. I'm turning 32 soon.
Oh, right. You're just a kid. You're like,
I appreciate that because sometimes I feel like I'm not.
But then it's one of the things, you hear stories about, well, if you'd have bought Lily's back in 1920, one share of Lilly stock, it'd be worth $6 million today. Or the story about the guy that got the Bitcoin. He paid somebody 50 Bitcoin to bring him a pizza.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like, that's worth $9 million. That's a hell of a tip.
Insane. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But I think do you think that that's a different mentality if you're, closer to retirement age? I mean, I'm not drawing any money out. I'm still, Gary's a little bit older than I am, but we could both draw Social Security and all that. But I just enjoy investing. It's like we're like money farmers. I want to
Of
plant my
course.
seeds and watch my
Yeah.
stuff grow.
You're old enough to get Social Security? Holy
Yeah,
cow.
he acts
Hey,
like my older brother, Ben. I mean, it's terrible. So,
No,
well,
it's a great friendship you guys have.
I tell my kids, my kids, obviously they've seen what I do and they've watched what I do. And I do this only because I've learned how to do it.
Yeah.
And it took me, I'm like you. I didn't blow through 4,000. I blew through a lot more to get the college education I needed to do this. But I kind of looked at it once I learned it, which would you rather have, the golden egg or the chicken that laid the golden egg? This is the
I'd
chicken
rather
that
have the
laid
cow
the
that
golden egg.
laid
It's
the golden
here
egg
all the time.
and the milk.
I mean, I started when in 1996. It hadn't changed a bit. Now you say it's gotten a little tougher, but they still get to a point where they're going to turn around, and you gotta learn that. But where I was going with this is I told my kids, you don't make a trade if you day trade in any trade unless you know why you're doing it. It ain't because the barbershop guy told you or the mailman told you or your buddy told you. If you're going to put your money in that market, you darn well know why you're doing it. You got to have a plan. This is a business, right? So
Absolutely. No, you have to have the stop losses. And if you're going to go about day trading, it's really about avoiding the dynamites, right?
yeah.
And it's crazy. I'm saying this. I don't even partake in day trading, but if I ever were, you have to know about the stop losses. You have to know about the proper sizing, your entry and exit points, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, man.
Well, the algos that you're talking about, all the algorithms, everything they built, they know where, like if they know where you've shorted. I mean, they're out to take your money.
And they know where your stop losses are. Yep.
Yeah, they know where the amount of money that's shorted the stock. So they'll ram it. They can do anything they want. They can raise these stocks 50 points in a day and bring it back. And at the end of the day, you're looking at CNBC and you say, oh, my stock went up $2. Well, no, it was actually up 50.
Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, they can do anything they want. And that's the reason you lose a lot of money or can make a lot of money.
Yeah, we've always been trying to figure out who they are.
They. Yeah, they is a tough answer. Yeah, there's a lot of speculation who they is. It's for sure.
So, as far as dividend stocks, I got one dividend stock that I really love. I've made a fortune off of it. And what do you think about dividend stocks? I mean, IBM's one that has a quarterly dividend that usually pays $1.60 ish in there, and but it's an expensive stock to buy and hold. But if you got a ton of money, you can just hold it and collect the dividend, and it's probably going to be good. So, what's your thoughts on dividend stocks and maybe a couple that are good producers?
Sure. So I'm going to rewind it just a second because you did ask me a really good question that I would like to answer about the 21-year-old.
Okay.
And what he does, right? And I'll finish with the dividend answer. So when we look at the 21-year-old here, you said maybe it might make sense for him to day trade because he might have a little bit of capital, not too much. I'm of the mindset you have the greatest asset of all, which is time. If you're looking at a 60-year-old retirement, which would be fantastic, right? We all hope for that. You got about 40 years in the market. If all you did was put a couple $100 a month into the market over the course of your investing, time frame, the compounding interest there is remarkable. I mean, just starting at my age now at 31 versus a guy at 21, you're talking a multitude of hundreds of thousands of dollars of difference because he got his money to work for him, for 10 years before me. So I still believe even the young guy needs to think long-term. And what happens is I have a lot of subscribers that come about around 55, 56 years old. And we sit down, we have our onboarding meeting. It's usually around 2 hours long, talking about their goals, their risk appetite. And I've noticed that some of the guys that started late, they feel the pressure to make up lost time. And those are really the guys that want to day trade. The 21-year-olds, I don't really see it as often as the guys that feel they're behind the ball and like, I'm getting old here. I don't want to work until I'm 80. I got to turn this money into something quick. And those are the ones that I fear, and I have to kind of talk them out of doing the day trading. because that's the quickest way. That little 150,000 they have that they know is not going to be enough to retire. They're trying to get to 500-600 so they can finally, just take a breather. They got to make sure they don't blow that 100K because it's so easy to do it. So even for the older investor and the one starting out, I'm sorry guys, I know maybe it goes against your investment thesis, but I still think long-term investing is the way to think about it. And then as it relates to dividend stocks, I am a fan of dividend stocks. Now, the one thing I will say is you have to be very, very careful of dividend traps. And what I mean by that is there are companies out there that pay fantastic yields, right? You see a 13% yield, a 14% yield, and you're just licking your chops. You got to be very careful because a lot of times I always say my rule of thumb, if the dividend yield is over 11%, wave the red flag. Usually there's usually there's not something smelling right there. Either the company's going to soon cut the dividend or you're going to see some capital losses on your investment and it's going to be the 11% or 12% or 14% you made on the dividend. It's going to be null and void because you lost 25% on your initial capital. I'm a big fan, without revealing too much of my portfolio, because again, that is what I show my subscribers. But just to give you a little color here, I'm a big fan of Realty Income. I think they are a fantastic company, triple net lease REIT, that pays roughly a 6% dividend yield. That is a name that I like a lot. Now, have rates been staying stubbornly high? Yes, but in the event that we do see a lower rate environment, that is a name I think could go back into the upper 60s, low 70s. They've increased their dividend now for 108 straight quarters. Even during the financial crisis, no hiccups at all there, not even a pause of their dividend. And then if I can add a little bit more color here, if you look historically from around 1971 to around 2020, when I did this report for my clients, the actual best dividend companies to invest in are not the ones that pay the highest yield, but the ones that are growing their dividend the fastest. So the dividend growers and the dividend initiators are actually the best performing dividend companies. See, I love Microsoft. I love Amazon. I even like Google here now on this pullback. No one looks at these companies as dividend companies, but I assure you, I believe in my heart of heart that in about 10, 15, 20 years, they will be massive dividend payers. The reason they don't pay a dividend right now is because there's so much opportunity elsewhere right now, whether it's AI, quantum computing, the cloud, cybersecurity. So they see way more ROI on their free cash flow as opposed to paying it to you in a dividend. I would argue, I'm a huge fan of Microsoft. It's part of my portfolio. It's been now for many, many years. I'm up 4 or 5x on it, and it doesn't even, I haven't lost one night of sleep. My favorite type of investment.
Right.
I'm of the mindset that if Microsoft announced today that they want to have a 3% dividend yield for investors, the stock would tank. It would absolutely tank. Why? Because that's management telling us they don't see any positive ROI or good enough ROI out in the marketplace in the current economic environment. So we're just going to pass you along the cash and you figure out what you want to do with it. So they're not there yet. Microsoft does almost $100 billion a year in free cash flow. Give them another 5 to 10 years after they monetize AI, monetize quantum computing, monetize cybersecurity, whatever, cloud, whatever else they're approaching. These guys will be cash flow monsters and they will eventually pay a massive dividend. So while I do own dividend companies that are paying nice yields today, I am also planting the seeds, John, as you mentioned earlier, on names that will be, in my opinion, massive dividend payers in 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. So do you like, we got monthly, quarterly, and yearly dividends. I have one, I'll give you that I run at Silvo. They covered calls on the silver market. They pay monthly dividend, and man, it's, when you said red flag at 13%, they're paying 20%.
Yeah, that's wild.
I know. And it's like, and they have about 195 million in assets that they invest. And it's like, I've been killing it with this thing. And it's a monthly dividend, and it's been very easy, predictable. The start of the month, it goes low, and then they'll announce their dividend on the 9th or 10th, and it's good, but it's all towards, and now, which brings me into the question I'm going to have: gold and silver. Gold's predicted to go to 4,000 and silver's going to go to 40 dollars an ounce. And that makes no sense because in a restricting economy, the demand for that is supposed to be down, but yet we're going the other way. So is that a red flag for you, or what's your take on that?
Yeah. So, a lot of times when we think about the market, and especially when I was at JP, there was always a thing where the commodity investors, and even more so the fixed income investors, know way more than the equity investors, right? Those are the markets that tell a much stronger story. and a much more truer statement of where things are at. Equity markets tend to see way more bubbles than commodity markets and fixed income markets. So they there's a funny term. They just more sophisticated investors operate in those two other markets. I think that when we look at gold here, I think what gold is telling us is there is actually a concern about the United States dollar being the reserve currency. And I think there's also a concern that the deficits that we're running at are just truly unsustainable. I don't want to make this podcast too much about politics. I find myself to be very down the middle. I will tell you, I am a little bit disappointed in this big, beautiful bill. I was really hoping. I was really hoping. I was rooting for Trump hard here, guys. I know I live in Jersey. Please don't put me in a certain demographic. Okay. I find myself right down the middle. I really do.
We're going to call you the Ben's bag of donuts. And all that, you
know? So I was just hoping that with this administration, we would truly see some austerity, some level of, we brought in Doge to cut some unnecessary spending. And I thought maybe we'd get to a path here of hopefully, if not balancing the budget, at least making a dent in the deficits.
Or at least stopping it. I mean, something.
And it just looks to me with this bill, and with the whole now feud between Elon and Trump, it looks to me like this is business as usual with these corporate politicians. And I don't want to say too much to maybe get any podcast canceled, even myself canceled. But things don't smell right to me. And I think that what the gold market's telling us is if our politicians don't start to get their act together, this is just a game of musical chairs. Make as much as you can. And I talk to my clients about this all the time. Guys like Peter Schiff have been right for a very long time in their predictions. They're not saying anything wrong. The issue is in the market, being too early is also being wrong, right? You can be right in your prediction, but if you waited 30 years for it to come true, I mean, look at Peter Schiff since the wake of 0809, he has been saying what we're doing is unsustainable. He's been spot on. We all know this. Yet the market's 3x, 4x since then, as he's missed out. So I think when we look at gold and what it's telling us, and we're looking at elevated yields, and we're looking at just the central banks just buying up these commodities like this, and then you look at how sensitive inflation has become, I think gold is telling us, hey, if you politicians don't start to act with some austerity and actually do your job instead of what appears to be just full-blown skimming off the top, this is not going to last too much longer. So the question is, we're all in this game of musical chairs. How much longer does the music play, and how much more can we can really pull from this market before it finally rings the alarm? And
Gary talks about that. He's been around for a long time. He talks about the bubble, and I don't think a show goes by when we don't discuss that it's going to be a correction. So that being said, the BRICS. We have the Russians and the Chinese tried to undercut our currency back in 2008, and they didn't have the juice to do it. But now and BRICS is sort of wandering around out in the wilderness. I think they're up to 44 different countries. I mean, maybe one of them's Zimbabwe and in South Africa or somewhere. I don't know. They may not be important, but if the dollar gets off of the world currency. What is that? What do you, in your opinion, what does that spell for us? If the king gets knocked down, the king is dead.
Like they say, when America sneezes, the whole world catches a cold. I think at that point, if the United States ever lost, the dollar ever lost its global reserve currency status, I think you invest in two things: lead and bread. That's all that matters. I don't think the market matters. We won't care about the market. Make sure you got tons of lead. Make sure you got tons of food.
And
that's
toilet
all
paper. You might add toilet paper.
You can add some toilet paper too, or invest in a bidet right now if you can. Maybe that's what you want to do, because I truly think there is no alternative. When we catch a cold, it's just that's it.
And you look at the tariffs. That sent a huge ripple through everywhere and all that. And the market. We look at the market, and the market always knows what's going to happen, like 2-3 days or a week before it actually happens. It seems
they.
We were trying to figure. So earlier you talked about who runs the company, who owns the company. I mean, and I know that investment companies, they may investigate who's doing what, but that's one of my biggest questions. Mark Forge and what was that? Desktop Metals and then Nano Dimensions. They all sort of, and I made a bunch of money on all that, and I lost.
That's funny. I actually got burned on Desktop Metal. It's funny you mentioned that.
I didn't get
Desktop Metal
burned.
actually burned me. That was one of my worst performing investments of all time.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bring that up. We didn't bring up.
No, it's okay. Rick Fulop is just an awful leader. I thought he would have a better time running the company, but he was more of a engineering mindset. And I learned this too, 3-4 years ago. You could be a very smart engineering mindset. That doesn't mean you're a good execution guy. And he was not an execution guy. He should have stepped aside, been chief product and technology officer, and let someone run the company way better. That was a big mistake.
So they had that big sideways deal with Nano Dimensions and Mark Forge. Nano Dimensions. Mark Forge actually has the 3D printers, and these other two companies supply the juice. This is my layman's terms on how that worked. And but Desktop Metals, they forced their sale through, and it just seems really odd on that. But I think that now, as far as Nano Dimensions, are you bullish or bearish on that? If you know much about them?
Yeah, so I looked into them because I thought, okay, if Nano Dimension is going to acquire, because they're acquiring Mark Forge and they're acquiring Desktop Metal, I was thinking to myself, maybe I'll pull the trigger on Nano Dimension because I think Desktop Metal has great proprietary technology in metal binder printing.
Right.
Okay. I'm very intrigued by what Rick has developed there with their P1 and P50 printers. And they also made some really interesting acquisitions, but they overpaid for them. Nano Dimension did the exact opposite. Nano Dimension in the during the COVID boom was issuing $1 billion worth of cash as their stock skyrocketed with no revenues. On the flip side, all Rick Fulop was doing was acquiring his competitors at meteoric valuations. And that came home to bite him in the ass. It really did. Excuse my French. So I'm looking here at Nano Dimension. I'm not fully sold on the management team just yet. I think they were smart to sit on their hands and not do anything till now. And the reason that Desktop Metal is forced, I should say now in past tense, the acquisitions, because they were going to go bankrupt without it.
Right.
They were running out of capital. They had maybe another 6 months of capital left on hand. Otherwise, it was all over.
Yeah, and you could tell that Nano Dimensions, it was a poop sandwich they were getting ready to eat because they didn't want to deal with it. But Mark Forge is a good fit for them because, they just seemed like it matched better. But so I got some long term in that.
There's actually a potential there because they have a strong enough balance sheet. The question now is, can they truly hit their EBITDA guidance in a couple of years? That's going to be the make or break for that company. And I just don't know. And in this higher rate environment, a lot of companies are refraining from spending too much on CapEx for these multi-million-dollar machines. So because my whole thesis was, okay, we might see some isolationism and we'll start to look at 3D printing, as an alternative source for our manufacturing. I still think that thesis can play out. It was just this higher rate, this elevated rate environment.
They're 3D printing homes here in Florida.
I've seen a video about that.
Yeah, they've got a whole community.
Given your guys' background, what's your thoughts on that? If you don't mind me flipping, a question back to you guys.
I can't wait for the first hurricane to come and undo the 3D.
Oh, you got to see how they're doing it. I mean, it's got to be strong, as strong, if not stronger than block. Yeah. I mean,
how about the cost advantages? Maybe time. Okay, maybe time's quicker. How about the cost of building? What do you guys see in there?
It's cheaper. It's about like anything. As there's more of it, it comes down. It's like big screen TVs. They used to be, $1,200. Now they're $300. So I think as time goes on, but it also, I think environment has a lot to do with it. So down in Florida, you have sand and better weather. Up here where I live in Indianapolis, go Pacers.
I knew you had to be from Indiana. I knew it.
Hey, Gary, did you know that Bez is a Knicks fan? Did you know that?
Oh, really? Yeah.
If I had told you guys ahead of time, you would have invited me on.
Yeah. So wait a second. Now, the New York Knicks are in Jersey. Is that correct? Am I?
No. They're smack dab Madison Square Garden.
Okay. So you got the Nets, the New Jersey Nets.
We lost the Nets many years ago to Brooklyn.
What? Well, you guys are.
We got nothing left. We got the New Jersey Devils. That's all we have.
The only time I've been in New York, I ran the New York Marathon in 2007. So that was.
Oh wow.
That was very interesting from this corn farmer from Indiana out in the big city. So, but it's an interesting.
It's all right. It's not what it used to be.
You say your first name's Ben?
Bez,
Bez.
B-E-Z. My full name is
Oh,
Besnick,
yes.
right?
Okay.
But everyone
Okay.
just goes with the first 3 letters. So they just
He's
call me
from
Bez.
he's from Albania.
Albania,
But,
yeah.
so wait a
Oh,
second.
okay,
Let's
great.
back up. Let's talk a little personal thing about
Sure,
Bez.
sure.
How the heck do you get from Albania to the USA? I just
You
want
can thank my parents for getting here. In fact, my dad first had to spend a little bit of time in Italy. My mother had to spend a little bit of time with her family in Austria because we were former Yugoslavia. We were technically in Montenegro, a small little town of Montenegro on the border of Albania. So technically it was
Wow.
Montenegro, which at the time was former Yugoslavia, and America was not letting any Slavs in. We were not letting any. So what my
Good
mom's
policy.
side, yeah, my mom's side, I don't blame you. My mom's side of family first went to Austria, stayed there, got the approval to come here. Okay, and then my dad did the same thing, but first he had to go to Italy. They spent some time there, and then they got the proper documentation. But so I am first generation, but my parents are immigrants.
Yeah, and
Nice.
it's great, and it seems like you're thriving and living the American
The
dream
American
and all
dream,
that
no
stuff.
doubt about it. No
You
doubt
know, and
about it.
so my last name Schmitz to TZ, and that's Austrian, not German. The DT and the TT are the German. So my people come from way back. They come from. I think what happened was my ancestors were Romans, and then when they were having that big German fight, they ended up getting stuck up there and probably ran into some Austrian chick that was hot, and then the rest is history. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
You know, the crazy thing is my grandfather still says to this day, after now he's retired and everything, he actually says to himself he thinks he might have had a better life if he never actually left Austria and just stayed there instead of coming to America.
I've heard Austria is like just super cool. But
I land in Vienna every time I need to go to Albania because there's no direct flights. Hopefully next year will be the first time we'll have a direct flight from New York. But I always do the connect in Vienna, and people are amazing. When I'm landing, I'm looking at the greenery. My goodness, it's
cool.
gorgeous.
Do you have those little sausages they make? Those Vienna sausages? Do you have those?
Never tried one. No. But I'll take your word
I
for
don't
it.
even think they're from Vienna, but I think a lot of the homeless people eat those things.
Oh man.
But hey, you should buy stock in Vienna sausages. I'm sure it's a booming.
Maybe there's an opportunity. Hey, listen, wherever we can make a buck.
That's right. That's right. So I had we talked earlier about the pump and dump. It's Gary's got a good nose for the pump and dump. He can sniff it out pretty good. But I think a lot of people don't realize
it happens
that.
every day. It happens really a lot pre-market.
Yeah.
But it does happen during the market hours as well, but mostly pre-market. They'll run any dollar stock, but I mean, these penny stocks, they'll run up to $3 and $4 and $5 from 50 cents.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, it's crazy. And then at the end of the day, I'll pull it up again, just see where it ended up, and it'll be back down right where it's at. But you can't short it. I can't short it.
Now, there's usually no
Guys
shares
on here can't
available.
short it,
Yeah.
but they can. They can play with it. Now, there's some they'll allow we can short.
So we play the natural gas game here. Now, Gary introduced me to this, and
Very
I'm still
interesting.
mad at him about this, the boil and cold. So the Bloomberg gas futures or whatever, and then cold. So they're the opposite. Now, Silvo, the one that I like that pays a dividend, it goes parallel with the silver market. The silver market goes up, those covered calls go up.
Yes.
But this one's and I'm sure that the algorithms keep these things in balance, because if one goes down $1, the other one goes up $1. I mean, it's like a seesaw. It's that predictable.
Absolutely. And the thing is, too, there's also arbitrage traders where their full-blown opportunity is to find arbitrage. So if they can make a little bit of a risk-free spread because one moved one way, it's inverse, another one is correlated. If they can find a mismatch in pricing, that's all those guys try to do, is find an arbitrage opportunity there. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And those guys will always fill that gap if there's ever a discrepancy between both products.
So red flag as far as movement. Now, Gary being more of the day trader on this, he looks for a stock that's going to move a lot. Like I said, Silvo is one that I'm high on. It's a monthly dividend. It does not move a ton, but it will move with the market, with the silver market. And I've been I would say I'm not very smart, but I'm fairly lucky. So, it pays a good dividend. It paid I think the last time it paid $2.15 for a month, and then the time before was $2.10, but it's been as low as 36 cents. But here,
Yes,
with the market the way it's going, it's been beneficial. But so,
Well, Bez, let's talk about if you don't mind,
Sure.
we're talking.
I know this Ben's guy's pretty sharp, isn't he? He's
Yeah,
making.
what do
We
you-
may have
how
to
do
change
you-
our name to the
Do you
Neophytes. And the guy
charge
that
for
knows
your
what he's doing.
service? Being you're our guest, do you charge for your services or?
I do. So it just depends on the amount of content you'd like. Some people don't really care for my models. I have higher end clients that request custom made financial models, so it takes me about a month to carve those out for them. So I have 3 different plans. Anyone that's listening can go to my website if they care. It's www.cubewealth.com, just as you see my username here.
Are you considered a financial planner or?
No, I'm not, because I don't take possession of any of the assets. And you know what I consider myself? I consider myself like almost a motley fool, but just better, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But I'm not issuing signals like, oh, we're gonna go ahead and trade this or something like that. People just are looking for new ideas. It's up to them if they want to make the purchase or not. But I lay it out so if they want to play it out, they can. So like these are 35-page, 40-page research reports on a specific stock that I issue every month, and it varies through many different industries.
Do some of your subscribers come to you with stocks and then you research them?
Yeah. So sometimes I put it to a vote if enough people want it done. So like recently I did a 35-page report on Deckers that owns Hoka and UGG, the 2 brands, and how they're potentially eating market share from Nike. So I put that out along with my financial model attached. And the financial models are really cool because I've created them in a way where you can change some of the figures to arrive at your own price target. So some of my clients might say, Bez, I think you're being a little too conservative in Hoka's growth in running, in the running environment. I'm going to tweak these numbers a little bit to assume instead of 15% growth, 20% growth. And my entire model will matriculate that into finding a price target for them based on the intrinsic value of future free cash flow. So I have a group chat that's accompanied with that where we're actually debating like the economy, debating stocks. It's not like a signals thing. They get updated when I make an investment transaction, and people subscribe because I do find some really solid investments. I don't want you guys to get it twisted and think I only invest in like boring blue chip companies. My clients do expect me to dig deep into the weeds to find some names that could 5x, 10x over the coming years that no one's really talking about. Right. And my subscribers range from all over. I have people that are still in college that haven't started yet. They're just learning. And then my wealthiest client has a little over 50 million. He doesn't. So he's an interesting guy.
He's up there with you, John.
Yeah. I got 50 million problems.
So it's
real quick, Bez.
Sure.
It's www.cubewealth.com.
Sure. Yep. CUBE, like cube, and then the word wealth. Yep.
Like that right there. I just put it in the chat. So so if you were just say you want first time you want to check Ben's out, how much would what's a subscription cost?
My lowest plan is $40 a month. It's very, very cheap. It's nothing. My most popular plan. Yeah, my most popular plan is a 75-month plan because that comes to the group chat and those models that I issue every month. I do webinars that are private that I issue to them. I do private podcasts with them. I do private live streams with them. I meet quarterly with them. Like I really do a lot. The subscription has naturally been rising in price just because I've been adding more and more content, more and more things. Plus, you get access to the entire library since the last 7 years that I've been making content. So that also becomes inherently more valuable as time passes. So
maybe don't give it away. Don't give it away.
You can't give it away. Yeah, man. My dad grills me at least once a week. You're selling yourself short. You're selling yourself short.
Back in Albania, we don't do that. Back in Albania,
you're not too far off there.
Our worth. We get the.
You're not far off there.
Well, but the flip side of that is, my dad always said, if you charge a fair price, you'll always have work.
This is the truth. So
you got to think about that too.
And I want to be fair. And I know.
And I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying.
No, for sure.
I love that. It's like back in our profession. I mean, there was always those contractors and/or building contractors that tried to make as much as they could off one house, but our company continued on because we charge what we had to charge
for a good price.
You make a great point. Because I always try to remember where this started. I got fed up and tired of trying to make the wealthy wealthier, and I said, if you look at the model for financial advising, right, or just financial management, usually it's a 1% fee on your money, right? If you were to take it to your normal advisor,
right?
They don't look at you with less than $100,000 because that's only $1,000 a year. I'm not looking at you with 20 grand. So I saw a huge portion of the market that's being unattended to that in reality needs a helper more than all of them. So it's crazy. So I try not to forget the roots of where I started. But here's the craziest thing I come to figure out, Gary, just starting a company young and trying to make it work. I was at one point like $20 a month for like my middle plan. And I noticed a lot of people still weren't biting on it. I'm like, dude, a lunch, if I go out, a pie of pizza is $20.
Yeah, right.
And I realized something crazy. People were telling me, I
know what you're getting ready to say.
Too good to be true.
Yeah.
There's no way you're providing quality value for $20
right.
a month. This is too good to be true. So when I increased prices, I got more subscribers because the perceived value was higher.
I
and
agree.
People started taking me more seriously. Unbelievable phenomenon that took me a while to come to gripes with, Crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing what we learn. And that's what I've been a mason contractor for 34 years, and I could retire, but it's so easy right now because I've spent 34 years building up foremen, and the jobs are just come so easy without. I used to lose sleep over the littlest things. I look back on that, I go, that's crazy. But hey, Gary, this is almost the first we actually have a viewer that has a question.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good. So do you think that Musk and Trump are playing Congress to get? Do you think that the Trump-Musk feud is like championship wrestling? I guess it's a question. Do you think that they're just sort of,
I would say yes until I saw that Elon tweet about him calling out Trump for being on the Epstein files.
Yeah,
that's when I said this is too serious. That's when I said
serious.
now you crossed the line. So I would have thought it was theatrics until he said that. Because I don't think Elon realizes not only is that a major thing to say, number two is, so are you telling us, I don't think he realized he just threw mud at his own face. Are you telling me you stayed with that administration knowingly, with that being known? Why are you working with the president if you already know that? So I think that was a bad look for both of them. So I would have said theatrics until I saw that tweet. I said, okay, now they're taking low blows. This might be serious.
If it's not true, can you imagine the lawsuit?
And Trump loves his lawsuits. So
I know it, and it's like
nothing like two big guys going
you just
at
set
it.
yourself up because the whole America that anybody that read that.
But you know what? I'm good with it. As long
changed
as
their opinion about the guy, and that's a
it.
lawsuit in the making. But
that's already the lawyers are already drafting that up.
Oh yeah,
I had to guess. There's no doubt about that.
Well, you remember Elon Musk gave Don Lemon that interview, and the whole time it seemed like he was setting Don Lemon up because he knew that Don Lemon was a fraud, and he just destroyed him. And I just wonder if Elon wanted to see what was going on under the hood, and now he's going to take all the spark plug wires out.
Very possible. It's hard to know with Elon, man. Even Trump, those two guys are wild cards. But yeah, that was a great question that came in. I thought they're just playing, they're just playing us. But when I saw that tweet, I said, okay, that's a big thing to say, and now this is serious. And I only feel like Elon would say something like that if he really wanted to go into the belt and really make it nasty. So I'm gonna say this feud's real.
Yeah, it's and it seems like we went from Joe Biden, who had to take a nap and everything was just moving like in a snail's pace, to a hyper speed train going off a big cliff. But honestly, the market has stayed somewhat not in panic. It panicked a little bit with the tariff thing, but it seems like we're not. We're still at 40 plus in the Dow. Everybody sort of holding their breath.
It seems like the trend's up. The trend is.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
The trend looks good. I would argue right now the market might be a little frothy on a valuation perspective now. Earnings still look healthy. But we got to see how this is going to pan out with the tariffs here. Trump wants to fight them now with the courts because it was potentially unconstitutional. Now he's fighting it. I don't know what the end result might be there. But I don't think we're fully out of the woods yet either. We got today's jobs report, decently healthy. But these are not the same prints we were seeing a year or two ago. So the economy is definitely starting to moderate. I do have some concerns about maybe some consumer weakness down the pipeline. I'm not sure. I think it also matters on a market-to-market basis. If you guys maybe add some color in your own demographics here, in your areas you live in, are you seeing with your own two eyes any kind of recession?
Yeah,
in the pipeline? See. I think the credit card
and the housing market has slowed down a lot.
Yeah, I've been hearing that.
Houses are sitting longer. Of course, rate a lot of the rate is the problem, but
I think there's a lot of credit
it's
card
a wait
debt.
and see. It's a wait and see.
Yeah, keep an eye on auto loans, guys. Auto loan delinquencies are on the rise.
Well,
That's a lot of
and
reason I
plus,
won't own a lot of these, like Ally Financials and even Ford for that matter.
well, they're putting a 10-year, it's a mortgage on a car or a vehicle. You could do a 10-year mortgage now on a car. And to
That's
me,
crazy.
that's no.
You know what's even scarier? When we look at '08, a lot of that all unwinded nastily because we created these credit, these CDOs, right? These products that bundle all the mortgages together in order to sell them, right? And the crazy thing is that we look back, we think, okay, we learned our lesson, but they're doing the same asset-backed securitization with auto loans.
Yeah.
And as those delinquencies rise, those products, some people don't get paid at the bottom of the tranche on those debt products. So something to keep an eye on there. Just because that could cause a little bit of a ripple effect, auto loans. So just keep an eye out there. Credit cards still look decent health wise, but I really don't like the rise of these buy now, pay later companies. That just does not sit right with me.
Some now that are unbelievable what you can buy, get for paying buy now. It's like almost like, I think even food. You can do this with food. It's
literally like concert tickets, like anything.
Yeah, it's like,
have you had a request for any of the I've lost it, astronaut stocks, satellite stocks.
Yeah, there's a good amount out there. I would say a good
Starlink, which what Musk is doing to provide the internet, IoT,
Internet of Things.
Yeah, but
yeah,
like when you can't get a signal, they're putting these satellites up in the sky.
Yeah, there's a few companies in the market that are doing this. You got
G-Sat.
names like ASTS, Globalstar, you got Viasat. You've definitely got a handful of names that are in that specific space. I'm actually doing some deeper research now on ASTS. I just started about 2 days ago. I had a few people talking to me about it in the group chat. A lot of the guys that are subscribed were asking me to look under the hood there. So
that was a $1 stock about a year ago.
Yeah, they were like a failed SPAC, and they just revived big time. They signed some major deals, I think. Yeah,
Paul Jacobs, that was CEO of Qualcomm, went to GSAT.
Interesting.
And, just in the last 8 months.
Okay. See, and this goes into the whole like management team thing. That's an interesting pickup there.
Yeah, we talked about that on our first show.
They have a major deal with Apple, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Apple invested like $1 billion in them.
That's impressive. That's notable. And then you also look at
I know, but their stock won't move.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know what their revenue. I mean, I can look it up right now if you guys want. I have the whole dashboard here, just so if you guys care. GSAT.
Gary usually puts his screen up and we go over.
Yeah, I'll just tell you guys right now. As far as revenue growth goes, it looks pretty solid. The pipeline looks solid. It looks like they're going to only have 4% growth this year to 261 million, but the market is expecting 20% growth next year to 315 million, followed by another 20% growth to 378 million in the year to follow. So. And EBITDA looks healthy. EBITDA is expected to grow 25% next year. So there could be a little bit of inflection point next year. Anytime like I'm looking for investments, I'm asking myself, what's the catalyst? And sometimes when you see an inflection point, like a trough in EBITDA or a trough in earnings, and now it's okay, we're now back on the up and up, growth is back into the picture. That could really be a catalyst, and the market's always forward looking. So if 2026 growth is truly going to be expected, you could see maybe a second half run here, leading up into that. So this is a name I don't keep too close to tabs on it, but interesting to know they got that guy from Qualcomm. That's a notable company.
When you look at a company like that, is there any signals that would come up to you to maybe this will be a potential buyout?
Yeah, for sure. So
I don't know what those signals would be, but it's like, I'd love to buy a GSAT today at 18, and next week it get bought out at 50.
I've had a lot of, you ain't kidding. I've had success with this in the past in cybersecurity. I've owned names like Carbon Black that got bought out way back in the day. I've had some success with this in medical devices. I own a few medical companies that I think make the right product fit for some of the larger names. I think you have to see here okay, who's in the industry? Are they growing at all? What are they lacking? So here's a prime example. If you look at these obesity drugs today, everyone, this also goes hand in hand, John, with our conversation about dividend traps and dividends, right? Pfizer. Everyone's been asking me about Pfizer for the last 5 years. I've told them, please keep away. Their pipeline is so weak, but the dividend looks so strong. So you're so tempted to buy it, but this thing does nothing but bleed to decade lows. And that's because their pipeline is extremely weak. And I believe that they are going to have to engage in some seriously expensive mergers and acquisitions to beef up that pipeline because their R&D is awful.
It's awful.
It's awful R&D.
Even though what they have is no good.
Exactly.
I don't even know if you want to call it research and development. I think we just call it guessing in the dark.
Pretty much. I think you're right there, John. So what you have here is I am looking at a multitude of different companies, especially in the obesity space, that a lot of people want some skin in, right? A lot of these clinical stage pharma companies that are in the obesity space, I think are going to get scooped up by your Bristol Myers, by your Pfizers, by your Lilly. Maybe Lilly. Lilly's got a great pipeline, I have to say, but these old decaying pharma companies that once were blue chips that are now seeing their patents expire, and they got comfortable on those cash producing drugs that in about 3-4 years from now aren't going to make them anything, because then they have the competition of over the counter and their whole entire moat is gone. So I look at like, okay, who's got the money? Because they have money. They're sitting on tons of cash. Who's got the money and who is struggling to make it on their own? What are some of the smaller players there that would be attractive to get bought out? I don't know the telecom space too much here, Gary, to specifically talk about Global Star. I don't know enough, so I don't want to speak on it. But I am looking at medical devices, cybersecurity, pharmaceuticals that I've had success on with buyouts. Also, there's a good amount of buyouts when it comes to software, but usually it's not from another software company. A lot of times it's from private equity. So like you'll see a guy like Thoma Bravo come in and do it, or some kind of activist. So I don't know. Like for example, ASTS. Maybe I know they signed a deal, I think with Verizon, or was it AT&T? Maybe one of these telecom companies at Verizon just says, you know what, let's just fold you in. Let's just get you into the whole picture here. It started as a partnership. That's a huge tell sometimes too, Gary. It looks like a start of a partnership or a strategic investment, and then it later becomes, we're just going to buy you out. But that's also sometimes what you could see.
Like NVIDIA making SoundHound, or investing in SoundHound.
I lost money on that one, Gary. Thanks.
Yeah, you sold about the time it was going up.
Yeah, I did that one. Some of them I did really well. I hit the timing great on, and that one I didn't.
On my trading chat, anytime ASTS comes up, it's a laughing stock. Well, no pun intended. It's a laughing stock.
Right.
I've never really looked into the company, if it is a company. But
it's legit, and they have quite a bit of cash on hand, and their revenue expectations over the next 5 years are insane. They're expected to be generating $3 to $4 billion in revenue in the next 4 or 5 years based on their contracts. The question is, can they get these satellites in orbit, and can they fully follow through with the monetization of it? And I think that's the big question mark. But expectations for the stock are sky high right now. I think it's almost a $10 billion company at this point.
Well, that's good. There was some press release yesterday that Amazon was, or the talk was Amazon was going to do a deal with them. Don't ask me what or why, everything's kind of brief, but their stock went up 3 or 4 points. So
yeah, and then I believe them and also Rocket Lab caught a bit of a bid today because people are concerned about SpaceX losing contracts with Trump, and then the next people to eat from that would be Rocket Lab on the launch side, and then ASTS on the satellite telecom side. So the space side, I'm actively invested in it. It's been treating me very, very well. I don't own those two names, but the space itself has been definitely rewarding.
Yeah, Rocket Lab is up 2.5 points today. So
yeah, I think that's on that.
It's skyrocketing.
Yeah, exactly.
To the moon.
So we're going to close it up here because you've been a great guest. I've enjoyed the heck out of this, but I just want to introduce you to the Magic 8 Ball.
Okay.
And this thing it's accurate. I mean,
We charge $80 a month to subscribe.
To subscribe to the Magic 8 Ball.
8 Ball.
So we
got 5 million subscribers.
Let's ask the 8 Ball. Okay, should everyone get a subscription to Benz's CubeWealth.com?
Let's go. Big money.
Oh, sorry, very doubtful.
Ah, damn. Guys, I really can't thank you.
Hold on, let's do it. I'll give you another break since you're a guest. You get another shake.
Listen. I appreciate that. If we're going 0 for 2, I'm just gonna have to call it quits.
Most likely.
There we go. Nah, guys, John, Gary, thank you so much for having me. John, I am so happy we crossed paths on accident, just you scrolling on TikTok. So for those,
this TikTok, I know I'm old and I got on this TikTok thing and I think I'm up to a whopping 100 followers now. I do another political show and I got a couple of them. And this one, me and Gary would find ourselves talking to each other every couple of weeks about stocks. And he got me into the game, probably 4 years ago. And it's just very intriguing to me, but I'm definitely a neophyte. I've learned a lot. Gary's taught me a lot. I learned a lot from you today. I don't have to, this is not I don't have to live in a box under a bridge if I don't.
It's a hobby of yours. Sure.
So, but hey, it's nice to be able to play at nicer golf courses. And
absolutely. John, I wanted to ask you, do you have a recording of this live stream?
Yes, it'll be. We are on the Mouthwash channel, Chateau de Mars Hill Studio. And let's see where we are.
I would love to upload this to my TikTok, this hour segment, and this way you guys can get some color too. We can both benefit from this. So if you have the recording, please send me the MP3 file or the MP4.
We're on, so it's on YouTube, Stock Market Neophytes. I don't know if you can pirate that off of there or
there's probably a download to MP4 link I can pull from that. Then that's no problem. I'll find a way to get. If I have trouble, I have you on TikTok. I can always shoot you a message if I have any issues.
This recording will be downloaded on StreamYard. Then I'll download it, and they just get to be pretty big files. So that'll be interesting.
If it's too big of a file to email over to me, I'll hop over to the YouTube. I'll download the link and then transform it. I'll do what I do, and then I'd love to post it to my platform too. And we could really both benefit from this.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people don't get involved because they don't know, and I don't blame them. It's very. It can be it'd be heart-wrenching. So
the market's very overwhelming. It's very overwhelming. People have money and they're just so afraid they don't know where to start, and that's the big thing holding them back. It's just that initial fear. But once you get past that, it's really not so scary.
I can't wait to look up what you do.
Yeah, listen,
I'm excited because I want some long-time investments, or long-term.
I have plenty of ideas for you guys. I think you'd find a lot interesting, and also some riskier names, Gary, that I think you might find worthwhile, because I know you're probably on the riskier side of things. Definitely have some names that I think have some massive upside that I'd love to walk you through. Because if you were to join, we hop in a 2-hour Zoom conference, and I'm walking you through my entire portfolio and why I'm invested in it, where I think it's going. It comes accompanied with hundreds of pages of research on all my names. So
that information you're saying right now, is it on your website? Same thing?
100%. 100%. Cube Wealth. If you type it on Google, I'll come up, or you just type in cubewealth.com. And I'm your guy right there and then.
Yeah, very good. That's why we call him Gary. That's why we call him Gary Slim Trader. I'm actually Johnny the Bull, but my real name's up there today.
That's all right.
And I change my name up all the time.
That's a good one. Johnny the Bull's a good one. You sure you're not from Jersey?
From Jersey. I'm from Jersey. I come out there, I'll bust your head. You tell me what I'm talking about,
Oh, man.
Beth, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
And coming and doing this with us.
My pleasure, guys.
And then stick around just a little bit. I'm going to run the ending here. Just stick around backstage. And then we'll come up and do our closing. I always forget to tell our guests that, and then they go away, and it's like that. So just stick around. Hey guys, we had an excellent guest today, and we appreciate you watching this. And hey, tune in. We're going to keep doing our thing, and we might change that time, Gary, from noon to later in the day, maybe after the closing bell.
I golf on Friday afternoons. So.
I'd left the golf course today, so that's.
Thank you for moving things around for me, guys. I do appreciate you making time for me today, and I know you guys do the segment earlier, so I do value you guys and appreciate you guys making the adjustment for me.
No problem. All right. Well, thank Ben. It's been great, talking to you, and we will. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
Peace out.
Thank you.
So you're new to the market and you're watching these market shows and talking to some of your friends, and maybe you listen to one of them and they say, hey, I got this great stock tip for you. Just get on board here and we'll ride this thing together. I'll show you how to do it and I'll teach you a few things. And you're like, okay, come on and get on. And then you get on there and then all of a sudden the market starts going. You invest this money, the market starts going, and it's going, and you're like, I don't know, I'm feeling a little bit shaky about this deal here, and then the market starts going up and down, and you're like, hey, and then all of a sudden the earnings come out, and it's like, oh, your friend says, oh well, sorry about that. I really thought it was a good deal. I just I'll talk to you later. And then you're sitting there holding on to the horns.